Hello, children. Welcome to the very first episode of Flippin' Philippine History with your hosts,
Mr. Guerrillas, aka Mr. Friday.
Mr. Ong, aka Wang Lao Shi.
and Mr. C, aka the Sea Monster. Before we jump to the main topic for today, let us have a short review of what you had last meeting. What you see here is a collage of pictures, or a group of pictures that will help you recall last meeting's lesson. All you have to do is to read the incoming Ed Puzzle question for instructions. Great job, man. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time for the main event. Introducing the topic for today. Fighting out of the dark corner. Weighing tons and tons of Mickey Mouse money fresh out of poverty and hurting from abuse. Please welcome Social Life of the Philippines under Japan.
The promise of Jacobs. Life in the Philippines under Japan wasn't so bad. Abundant natural resources grew left and right. Dollar bills fell everywhere like leaves from the trees. And your mama didn't have to work in order to feed you. Oh, we were so happy.
Are you kidding me, Mr. Friday? 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 Are you kidding me, Mr. Friday?
Well, yes. I was just testing them, Mr. Lauscher.
Well, social life under Japan back then can actually be likened to this activity. Take it away, Mr. C. Monster.
Use your imagination to respond to the fictional situation. Warning. This will contain a great dilemma and some surprises. You have been warned. The world is now under a zombie apocalypse. With your family, you have managed to survive, except for one family member who was bitten by a zombie. So you desperately went outside your safe house to find a cure for him. You are now outside your safe house. And then you see this little girl just crying for help. Like your family member, she too was bitten by a zombie. As you approach the little girl, you noticed that she is holding an antidote.
During the war, the Filipinos were forced to become guerrillas. Who remembers what guerrillas are? Guerrillas, not gorillas.
Gorillas! Gorillas!
Anyway, during that time, guerrillas became so common that there were now two types. Guerrillas who were once former soldiers, and guerrillas who were once citizens. Escaped soldiers and citizens fled to the mountains to form guerrilla units. And out of those, the most prominent among the guerrillas was the Hukbalaha, or Hukbo ng Bayan Laban sa Hapon, which was organized in Central Luzon by a certain Luis Taro. Now, the Hooks were not soldiers, but simple farmers who banded together to bravely fight the Japanese invaders. The role of the guerrillas actually was very important in the end of World War II. They helped in the return of MacArthur and his forces to the Philippines by weakening the Japanese and providing intel on the Japanese movements. However, there came a problem. Some Filipinos actually pretended to be guerrillas and committed crimes such as robbery, kidnapping, and a number of other war crimes. Have you ever wondered why some cartoons tend to be funny, or that they sometimes attack political officials openly? This is because it is one way for them to actually air out their opinions, but at the same time protecting themselves. This is because cartoons are a way for us to say, what we want to say, and be still protected from other people. Now, during the Japanese period, this became one of the ways for the Filipinos to fight against the Japanese. You see, not everyone could fight the Japanese openly or as guerrillas. Some used creative ways of defying the Japanese through wordplay and humor, like the cartoon Pugo and Tuko. Civilians could help by spying, giving information to guerrillas, sabotaging Japanese communication and supply lines. Others simply disobeyed Japanese policies or ignored them. Yes, this put them into trouble, but given the fact that there is no actual action that these people did, the Japanese could not just simply get them and execute them, especially those who hid under what we call pseudonyms or fake names to protect themselves.
We're all in this together. What? We're starting?
Yes, Mr.
Sorry.
Ong.
Okay. I'm sorry. Like the song that I was singing a while ago while I was caught off guard.
Sorry.
So, High School Musical featured the story of several teenagers, the Wildcats, who collaborated with each other to make their school experience a lot more fun. They worked together. This reminds me of what happened during the Japanese occupation when some Filipinos collaborated or worked together with the Japanese. Now, this leads me to our next segment called Metaphors Be With You.
And with your spirit.
Iba kasi yan.
Sorry.
But anyway, so as a metaphor, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have already watched Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, we can think of Ultron as a metaphor to represent the Japanese. So, who would the collaborators be? That's right, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. They were the collaborators who worked with Ultron in trying to take out the Avengers. Philippine history, again, it must be remembered that there were some Filipinos who collaborated with and aided or helped the Japanese invaders against their fellow Filipinos. In fact, a group of pro-Japanese Filipinos even founded this paramilitary group, the Makapili, or Makabayang Pilipino, which was believed to have been used as spies. So these were Filipinos who were willing to go against their fellow Filipinos. Japanese soldiers conducted this thing called the Sona in areas where people were suspected of being guerrillas or rebels. What happens is, a spy with a sack over his head would point out the guerrillas, whether these people they pointed out were actually guerrillas, rebels, or in most cases, not. Some of the collaborators, such as President Laurel, felt that they could lessen the hardships of the Filipinos if they served as a shield between the civilians and the Japanese. So, you shouldn't forget the words that President Quezon told these officials, that they will do whatever they can to make the Japanese not harm the Filipinos. Related to collaboration, there were also a lot of Filipino opportunists. So these are Filipinos who practice what we call opportunism, which is a practice of taking advantage of opportunities or circumstances, often with little regard for principles or consequences. So this means that when someone sees an opportunity, they're going to take it and they don't care what happens to other people as long as they get what they want. At that period, there were also Filipinos who took advantage of the situation and found ways to serve their own interests. Some examples of opportunism include the following: exhuming dead people from their graves to steal their clothes and golden teeth in order to sell them. Selling of imitation goods like substandard cigarettes, tea, and coffee to unknowing people who think that these are probably good quality. Pretending to be guerrillas just to rob people and do all sorts of crimes. Providing the Japanese some war materials if the price is right. There's even this quote by Carmen Guerrero Nakpil, which says, during this period, brothers hid little bags of sugar or lard from each other, while fathers ate their ill-gotten slice of pork, while their children languished from a vegetable diet. The Filipinos became callous and miserly, a race of spies, thieves, saboteurs, informers. So it really wasn't a good time or a good place for Filipinos.
Live via satellite, reporting about the past, it's Mr. Sea Monster. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some breaking news about the past. Did you know that newspapers and radio stations back in the Japanese period was not this free? That is because newspapers and radios back then were only allowed to report good things about the Japanese. So how the heck did Filipinos get access to real news that time? Did they just depend on the Japanese newspapers that told them lies about the period? Actually, no. Some Filipinos were resourceful enough to create their true source of news. One example would be the guerrilla newspapers. Yes, you heard me right. Guerrillas created newspapers. They were not just gun-toting warriors who fought for their country physically. They also used their mental might to show their people the truth. So you can say that they're like Bonifacio and Jose Rizal combined, using both the might of the sword and the pen at the same time. But what if the Filipino preferred to listen to the radio instead? Well, there was a radio station before that was very famous for reporting the truth about the period, and it was called Radio San Francisco. Some of you might be wondering now, with the technology before, how did the Japanese actually control the radios of the people? Well, for you to own a radio unit legally, you need to have it registered. Now, what do I mean by registering your radio to the Japanese? By registering your radio to the Japanese, this would mean the Japanese limiting the radio stations you can listen to, because they will adjust the frequency of your radio unit so that it can only listen to Japanese-sponsored radio stations. So how did the media of the period sound like? Since the goal of Japan is to make Asia for Asians, they did not allow the use of the English language when it comes to any media material, be it books, be it newspapers, be it the radio, etc. So in other words, they were only allowed to speak and write in Filipino. And to add insult to injury, authors and painters were only limited to topics such as the province or the rural life. Just like the media, education under the Japanese was also limited. So when the Japanese saw what we were learning in our schools before, they were like, oh no, we have a big job to do because the education is so American. In order for them to forget this, they need to get big amnesia. And so in order for Japan to give us that big amnesia on American culture, they made it each and every school's main goal to spread the idea of Jacobs. Therefore, education during the period experienced an overhaul or a total reorientation. In line with this, the Japanese promoted Filipino culture. To further motivate their soon to be workers, who are students, of course, during that time, the love for work was also taught in the schools of the period. Therefore, they fused vocational education courses with elementary education.
So all students in the Philippines, I want you to work in the farm and study at the same time.
Aside from being in the classroom learning about math, science, and Filipino, students would also find themselves outside the rice fields to learn about farming and other vocational courses. So what were some of these vocational courses?
So as Japanese, we offer agriculture, medicine, fishery, engineering. We want you to take these vocational courses because it is for the good of Japan. For your own good in the Philippines.